This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Minimal Cases. We've talked about Minimal before. These cases are so thin, you'll forget that they're there, but the protection they provide is very, very real. And right now, until the end of the month, Minimal is offering our listeners 35% off of your order, maybe for that new iPhone 11 you just picked up, by using the promo code DIGITDAILY or by clicking the link in the show notes. That's mnmlcase.com and use the promo code DGITDAILY with no space to get 35% off your order, and we thank them for sponsoring this podcast. Good morning, Digit fam. Adam Dowd here, kicking off another week with all the tech news that you need to know. And we're starting off this week with an argument. And it's an argument that we'll be having a lot in the near future until we don't. So let's make with the arguing. It is September 16th, 2019, and this is your Digit Daily. So today's argument broke out over the weekend when Apple analyst and Bloomberg reporter Mark Gurman threw a little shade the iPhone's way by complaining about the lack of 5G support in the new iPhones. In short, by not having 5G, Apple is shorting its users by not including the super fast speed capability in its super fast iPhones. Mark poo-poos the argument that 5G isn't ready now, and by the way, it isn't, pointing out that people now keep their phones for 3 years, and 5G markets will be strong in the China and the US within 12 months. So what gives, bruh? And that's very true. Every major US carrier is promising at least 50% coast-to-coast 5G coverage in 2020. And OEMs are not only bringing out expensive phones like the Note 10 5G and the LG V50, but cheaper phones like the Samsung Galaxy A90 and the OnePlus 7 5G. Even Honor is predicted to put out a $500 5G phone before the end of the year. With all these phones coming to market, 5G must be ready, right? Except it's totally not. Now, for as much as I'd like to talk about Sprint's 5G service and how reliable it is in downtown Chicago, and I hate to tell you this, but the entire US is not downtown Chicago, though arguably it should be. In fact, Sprint is covering 700,000 subscribers with its sub-6 5G deployment in Chicago, but my mother isn't one of them, and she lives in Chicago. Granted, she's about 6.5 feet from the suburbs, but her zip code starts with a 606, and if you live in Chicago, you know what that means. So Sprint's 5G coverage is big and reliable, but they haven't even covered an entire city yet. We've already talked about how Apple never leads the pack in cases like this. A couple weeks ago, I cited the Geared Up podcast when I mentioned that there will never be a 5G variant of the iPhone. There will just be the iPhone, and hey, it gets 5G now. Will that be next year? I'm kind of 50-50 on that one. I'm still not convinced that 1 year from now we'll be significantly better off in the 5G department. Even if every carrier went totally sub-6 and started replacing every 4G antenna array with a 5G antenna array today, and I've said before how it's basically a one-to-one swap, I'm not sure that they cover every single tower in just a year's time. And as for millimeter wave, well, I could tell you about millimeter wave, but I'm going to let Rene Ritchie over at Vector, with a tiny sprinkling of the Mr. Mobile, explain it for you.
Unless you want to be part of the early test pool and pay handsomely for the privilege, if 5G is legitimately your next big purchasing driver, you should save your money and buy a far more mature 5G phone if and when the current issues are all ironed out, and future radio chips can do everything, all bands, all in one thin modem, or integrated right into the system on a chip.
In our 4-hour trek across Providence, we visited a half dozen 5G nodes, and sometimes staying connected was literally a matter of which direction I was pointing, because your body blocks the waves, or even how many leaves were on the trees above my head.
And I say if because the millimeter wave part isn't even a certainty yet. It's not HSPA or LTE. There's a chance it won't even be everything everyone is hoping it will be, that deployment will prove too expensive and too problematic, that it won't become the next big consumer cellular solution, and instead be relegated to broadband use in high-density areas or something similar. In other words, that it'll become the next WiMAX.
Ouch, WiMAX. Try to keep the gloves up there, Renee. So basically, right now, we know that 5G is the future, but we don't know which 5G is the future or when that future is actually going to get here. We don't even know if the 5G we're using today will be the final answer. Apple will never, ever, ever play in that space. Apple will let all the 5Gs fight it out cage match style, and only when a clear winner is declared and deployed on a widespread basis, then we will see a 5G sticker on the box of the iPhone, because, the iPhone would never put a sticker on the phone itself. Well, actually, Johnny Ive is gone now, so they might. But whatever, either way, the argument will continue until we're all just on 5G and everyone's happy. But for now, let's head into the Roundup! And speaking of 5G, Robert Triggs, aka the smartest guy in the room usually, over at Android Authority wants to let us know that you don't have to buy a $1,000 smartphone to get the 5Gs. In fact, at IFA this year, 5G was all the buzz because, of course it was. Not only did Qualcomm announce 5G support for its mid-range processors, but many OEMs announced upcoming 5G phones that are meant to be affordable. You see, it seems $1,000 smartphones still aren't selling well. Imagine that. And while many hope that 5G would change that, many others are thinking that the $1,000 ceiling will be a barrier for 5G, hence the need to bring costs down. When people vote with their wallets, they tend to vote for the lower numbers. You've heard of solar panels, devices that generate power from the sun. Well, now, researchers have developed a device that can generate electricity from darkness. You see, when darkness falls, the Earth gets cooler, and this device can turn that lost energy into usable energy. Not a lot of usable energy. At the moment, it's only enough to power a small LED bulb, but this is just a proof of concept, and it's a pretty cool concept. The thinking is that the device on a bigger scale can power a house during the day and night because of the heat differential between the two. It's still a long way from practical applications, but man, the future is cool. Google Earth helps solve a decades-old mystery of a man who went missing. Unfortunately, the story doesn't have a happy ending, but a satellite image revealed a car in a pond in the middle of a housing development in Florida. That car contained the body of William Molt, who had been missing since 1997. A property owner was perusing Google Maps and spotted what appeared to be the outline of a car in the pond behind his house. It takes a set of eagle eyes, but that car has been visible in maps since 2007. Anyway, the car has been recovered along with William's remains. Of course, how he ended up there will probably forever be a mystery, but for now, that case is closed. To the surprise of basically nobody, MoviePass will be closing its doors, and it announced it last Friday with less than 24 hours of notice to its subscribers. Thanks, MoviePass. MoviePass cites the inability to raise a new round of funding, perhaps due to its flawed business plan and abysmal management team. And as I've pointed out on the show time and again, there are plenty of dumb rich people out there willing to fund a business. But apparently even dumb rich people have a bar, and no matter how ridiculously low that bar was, MoviePass couldn't make it over. So long, MoviePass. It's been fun making fun of you. But that's okay, because there are still plenty of insane projects for dumb rich people to invest money in. Take, for example, the Gateway Foundation, a startup in Alta Loma, California. They are going to build a space-based cruise ship with 2 hotels that will hold up to 100 guests. And they're going to do it by 2027. Does that sound insane? Okay, what if I told you they were going to build it by 2025 and then open it in 2027? There are hotels in Vegas that took longer to build and open. I mean, do they know where space is? Look, folks, I'm not an astronaut or an astrophysicist, but I would like to think that I'm fairly in touch with the space program in general. Right now, the ISS, which is the biggest sky house that exists in space, took about 30 space missions over the course of 10 years and 15 different countries to build. But Motel 6 here thinks that they can bang one out in 6 years. Sure. Look, folks, I don't doubt that someday someone will listen to the Digit Daily in a space gym on a space motel doing space yoga, but it's not happening in the next 20 years, let alone the next 6. And yes, I will bet good portions of my anatomy on that. So that's going to do it for today's Digit Daily. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on Digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, leave a review, and don't forget to tell your friends about DigitDailyPod.com. Once again, I'm Adam Dowd, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again tomorrow.